Great. In the wake of the PUBG Invitational, PlayerUnknown's Battlegrounds is continuing to grow rapidly. The game has now moved 8 million copies since its release in March and has reached 810,000 concurrent players on Steam. It now trails Dota 2 by only 30,000 people.
That's very impressive. Did you guys watch any of the Invitational?
I did. I watched a lot of it.
I watched the final match. The
squad one?
Yeah.
What did you think of it?
I was impressed. I definitely am curious to check out the game. Like Ryoko very graciously gifted it to me on Steam.
Yay, Ryoko!
But I haven't had a chance to check it out just yet. But this was very entertaining to watch. I was mostly curious to see how the casters were approaching the format, which. Yeah. I thought they actually did a very good job with, but did have some of my concerns, confirmed in that because, for as well as it was done, it still had some really major problems. You know what I mean? They don't have the ability for replay. Replay would have been huge.
Or to confirm replay. And actually,
that too.
This happened in the International too. There were a few times where they'd be like, hopefully they show us that again so that we can confirm.
Right. And I think that's probably not a good idea for a sports presentation, right? I definitely think they're going to need to add a much more comprehensive kind of spectator-ish mode that casters would have to be in, because as far as I could tell, they were just mostly observing different people's screens and moving between them and sometimes looking at the map to see where the play area was and where the different squads were. So until they add a little bit more of a meaningful way to move between people and check up on action, then I think that what they would need to do is have a much more comprehensive production team working on something like this.
Yeah.
Now,
also,
obviously,
keep in mind too, still an early access game,
right? And with this being really the first meaningful tournament for PUBG, I know that PlayerUnknown actually came out afterwards and said, "Hey, thank you guys for your patience. This was really just kind of a trial run to see if something like this would work." So I'm just trying to give them some ideas for the future. This is not a criticism because I think for their very first time they did a remarkable job.
Better than For Honor.
For the task that they were undertaking. They really knocked it out of the park. Okay, that said, I think you're going to need to get more robust with your production crew and have multiple people in that spectator mode taking multiple angles, right? So you would have someone that, and this is just kind of an ideal situation because, trust me, you're going to have tons of money to be able to throw at this thing, but. An ideal situation would be, you've got your live feed, which of course the casters are always commenting on, and then you would have one line of 3 or 4 people who are just in spectator mode that are paying attention to the beats of the match and trying that the priority for them is to get the major action and record it. Once that's recorded, there's got to be another production team of maybe 2 people that are cutting it up and getting it ready for an instant replay so that the casters, who are doing a great job of, by the way, giving you a full context on what's happening on the map, far better than I could just by observing a game of PUBG, mind you, that they would then have access to oh, I hope that we get to see that. Those moments don't happen. They're there in the can ready.
Let's see that again. And
exactly.
Pull it up for them.
Exactly. But as a caster, you can't do that if you're trying to call. It definitely takes a production team. And I think if you had at least a small, 6-person production team that you could easily pull that off and have it be really cool.
Mm-hmm. And I do want to take a moment just to, again, commend those casters who I thought did a really good job and had a lot of chemistry with each other. The female caster in particular, I thought was so good and so entertaining over the course of the 3 days. And really, The production itself, I did think got better as the days went on. The first day singles competition was kind of rough, especially with the camera work, but it got better as the event went on.
Yeah, and I think that that's one of the things that you got to keep in mind is that, especially for esports, when we talk about camera work, you've got two different aspects, because you've got the live camera work that happens in the event studio itself, and that takes a lot of really traditional knowledge of the way that camera angles are operate, the way that, you get light balancing and all those very technical production things of, lighting and covering a room in cameras, right? But then you've got this other aspect, and it's in it, and I think that this is the thing that people kind of forget, like even a lot of tournaments forget, is that 50% of your presentation is in-game. 50% of your presentation. I mean, when we were watching Dota 2, when we were watching the International, right? Like, for impressive as that stage was, for most of the time, you were watching the game.
Yeah.
Right.
So you need, developers, especially if they have a very robust competitive scene, really need to give some forethought into a spectator mode and the way, and giving casters the tools to be able to make an amazing, live presentation, because all of those things have got to happen live. Like, all of those things, like, production crews are very, very adept at doing this, but maybe not as adept at getting, following the action in the game. So there's got to be, a variety of skills that would go into something like this. But that said, again, for the very first presentation of it, very impressed.
I have a question for you, Callie. So I think at this point, it's sort of inevitable that Playerunknown Battleground is probably going to surpass Dota 2 for concurrent users, right? Yeah. How long do you think this is going to last? You think Dota 2 has the legs to be more than just a fad? You think it's going to be like a staple mainstay of Steam and Twitch for a while now?
You mean PUBG?
PUBG, you mean?
PUBG, yeah, sorry.
I do think it does. We haven't even gotten to game release yet. There's more maps coming, which I did not even realize there was going to be more maps added.
Yeah, that's actually amazing.
Yeah, so there's a new map coming. It's a desert map, and people are finally getting to the point where they're saying, hey, we need somewhere else to play. We've kind of figured out this map, as large as it is. But it's been confirmed that there are 2 more maps in development.
Wow.
Yeah, I think
I think that's a big deal. Like finding out that there's 2 more maps, like, that's huge.
Yeah,
like,
and
they could have gone to market with what they have and probably been okay, but going to market with possibly 3 maps, wow.
I think at market launch they'll have 2 of them out. I don't think the third one will be out yet. But Playerunknown has come out and said that development time on a map is 1 year. Like, it takes.
Wow, really?
They're
big maps.
The maps are huge.
Yeah.
They're massive.
Yeah, it has to be able to accommodate 100 players comfortably. And for an idea of how big it is, you can run around on those maps even with 100 people and not see anyone for quite some time.
Mm-hmm.
Oh,
yeah,
wow.
yeah. Well, and I think I guess my best analogy would be like it's one of them. It's sort of like one of the medium-sized islands from Just Cause. Just Cause 3. Yeah, it feels like that big, but it is. I mean, it is big, and I mean, Nika, you should. I think you should check out PUBG, because part of it is like, you're dropped into this huge map, but the map gets smaller and smaller as time goes on.
Right.
So you're forced to engage with people. It does have a very specific mechanic, so that like if you're down to 2 squads or you're down to 10 people or whatever, you're not spread out across this huge map trying to find people.
Yeah.
Oh, I see. Okay.
By the time the game's over, like in the last 10 people alive, you won't be on a map like any bigger than 50 meters, not even. Like, it'll be real small by the time you finally get to the end of the game.
Yeah, right.
All right. So PC players are looking forward